and with me early on, and that will make your life easier. So stop by and say hi. And in all of this, we can all commit to being both skeptical, where we want to ask questions, respectful of others, curious, and playful. Okay, today's talk is about the context globally of the Sustainable Development Goals and the goal of providing everyone with access to safe water. The importance of having safe water on tap, and how not having safe water on tap ends up being a spiral to failure. And as another example of that, what happens when you have a water supply system that is intermittent, where you only get water some of the time, and how that is one of the potential spirals to failure. I'll talk a little bit about the myth that the technology is well developed, and end with a role for universities. And then if I pull this off, we'll have plenty of time to land in the office, in the Gather office, and we'll have some questions, some things to do to make sure that it's easy for you to report problems about this class when you encounter them. So first, Sustainable Development Goals. Here they are. There's 17 of them. The goal is to have this all wrapped up by 2030. I think there's the planet is good at making these really wonderful goals, but actually implementing them is much, much more difficult. The one that we're focused on is clean water and sanitation. The goal is to achieve universal and equitable access to safe and affordable drinking water for everyone by 2030. And on the sanitation side, support and strengthen the participation of local communities in improving water and sanitation management. Sorry, that's both on the sanitation and the water side. And those are things that we can get excited about, like where it's absolutely right that local communities need to be fully engaged in managing their infrastructure. And we certainly would like everyone to have access to safe drinking water. And in this course, we sometimes shorten it. We would like everyone to have SWOT, S-W-O-T. We would like everyone to have safe water on tap. So here's some facts about where this is at. So as of 2015, and I know this is old data, but I went and looked, and there's, the data is old, and oh my, the data is old, and the data is not as great as you wish it would be. In 2015, 71% of the global population, or 5.2 billion people, used a safely managed drinking water service, meaning something that was located on their premises, like a tap, or maybe a pump or a well. It was available when needed and free from contamination. So that's a statement from the World Health Organization, and let's bring some skepticism to that claim. And part of the skepticism is that that statement was made without collecting data on water quality in rural areas. So we don't actually know nearly enough to make any claims like is made in that first sentence there. And I contend that this estimate of 71% having access to safely managed water it's not nearly as good as what they would have us believe. So here's some more data from a UN fact sheet. Here it says 90% of the global population used at least a basic service. And a basic service is an improved drinking water source within a round trip of 30 minutes to collect water. So you only have to walk at most 30 minutes to bring back improved water. And then another statement, 884 million people lack even this. And that includes 159 million people who are dependent on surface water. So that means there are 159 million people who have to walk more than 30 minutes to get surface water that is almost certainly extremely contaminated. And then here's another statement, and I'll see if you're really paying attention, it'll start raising some questions. globally, at least 2 billion people use a drinking water source that's contaminated with feces. And if you put statement 1 and statement 2 together, you know what you get? You put those two statements together, 90% of the population has access to an improved drinking water source. 2 billion are drinking water that's contaminated with feces. And the only way that the math can work out, given the global population, is that there are some people that are using what is considered an improved drinking water source, and it's contaminated with feces. So even our definition of what an improved drinking water source is probably pretty bad if it includes drinking water that is contaminated with feces. And we know contaminated water can transmit diseases such as diarrhea, cholera, dysentery, typhoid, and polio. And it's estimated to cause 500,000 diarrheal deaths each year, which I guess is not as bad as what COVID has done to the planet, but this is happening every year, all the time. A few stats from Honduras, because that's where I like to play, where I have lovely contacts. Again, from the World Health Organization. There, the claim is that 97% of the urban population has access to an improved water source, and 83% or 84% has access in rural areas. And when I travel around Honduras, I'm like, where are these 84% of rural areas that have access to improved water? And so you have to be really skeptical of language. In this case, improved water source included water that was in a pipe. So water that was in a pipe was by definition improved. And I'm hoping that you're thinking that putting river water in a pipe doesn't make it safe to drink. And so improved water isn't necessarily safe. So it shouldn't have been our goal. So that's an example of improved water, because that water was going to go into a pipe next and come out of somebody's tap. That's not what any of us want as our drinking water source. And then here's another example of something that was definitely improved. This was a surface water source that was going into a distribution tank for a large town or city. And there was a tank of chlorine sitting on top of it. And there was a little valve put in the bottom of that tank, and it was dripping chlorine into the tank. And that was the extent of the water treatment. So this is at least one step up. They were doing one thing to their water before it was distributed. To be fair, this picture is probably about 15 years old, and that situation has been remedied for that city. But there are many, many, many towns on this planet where water treatment is either non-existent or inadequate. So billions need safe water on tap, and the question is, how many really? So here's some estimates. About 2.3 billion lack access to safe and readily available water at home. And I put my little caveat in, this is Monroe's parentheses, where I'm like, yeah, we don't actually know that number, and maybe it's actually a whole lot higher than that, based on the fact that it's very easy to tell that the numbers have been way inflated for how good things are. So let's take 2.3 billion. And then over the next few years, we're going to have an additional 1.2 billion in population because of growth. And that gives us 3.5 billion that will need treated water by 2030. And if you turn that into, and I'm realizing I should have updated these numbers. These numbers were from a couple years ago. And so the math might not work out if you use 2022 as your date. But it takes something close to 267 million people per year. And it's as if we were building water supplies for 18 New York cities per year. That's what it would take to meet this huge pent-up need and the need that's coming online as more and more people are being born, as the population is growing. And So now okay, I started out at 2.3 billion, I think, and then I got up to 3.5 billion. And then there's another thing that we should take into account, and that is that the water supply systems, including the treatment systems, have a limited life. And so the ones that have already been built, those need to be repaired eventually and replaced or upgraded. And so if we assume a 50-year lifetime, and now we got 8 years left until 2030, that means that 16% of existing plants need to be replaced, and supposedly 5.6 billion have safe water on tap. That's based on the total population minus the number that don't have safe water. And so I get another almost billion people that would need an upgraded system by 2030. So I suppose if you're thinking, yesterday I was trying to convince you that you should become a business major, right? Remember? Now I'm like taking the other side and saying, but if you look at how much work is left to be done on providing safe water, it is one pile of work where the numbers are in the many billions. Here I come up with a total of 4.4 billion people who will need either new water treatment systems or new water supply systems or upgraded ones by the time we get to 2030, if we're to meet our goals. And there's my Monroe's statement on the right, which is not based on any data. I want to be very clear. This is just Monroe making an opinion and wishing that someone would prove me wrong. Okay, so I'd happily be proven wrong in this, but my bet is that the amount of infrastructure needed and not yet built to deliver safe water on tap to everyone on the planet is greater now than at any prior time in human history. It's because population has been growing so fast and we've been doing such a poor job of meeting everyone's needs. I think the deficit of that infrastructure is greater now than ever.